The next number system I want to discuss today is the hexadecimal number system. After binary, this is probably the most commonly used, the most important number system. I mean, apart from decimal, of course. Decimal, binary, and hexadecimal. So this is in base 16. As you have probably guessed, if you are working in base 16, you will need 15 digits. Just like when you're in base 10, you need from 0 to 9, you need 10 digits. So in base 16, you need 16 digits from 0 to 15. So the digits that we use are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we need to go all the way up to 15. So we call them A, B, C, D, E, F. So A is like your 10, B is 11, and so on till 15. So for example, you might have a number such as 5A. This is a hexadecimal number. Let's see how you go about doing this. So of course, there is this straightforward way of converting from decimal to hexadecimal, which is by dividing by 16 each time. So for example, suppose I ask you to write 85. Suppose you have 85 in decimal, and I ask you what is the hexadecimal representation of this. The first way is normally just power of 1, 16, 256, and so on. But we don't need 256. How many helpings of 16 do you need to make 85? You need 5. So 16 times 5 is 80. Then I need 5 more. So this is 5. So do you see how 85 decimal is 5 in hexadecimal? So we say this is 5 in base 16, or sometimes in shorthand we say 55H. So that H means it is in hexadecimal. What about the number 94? So 94 in decimal. So again, 256, 16, 1. We are not going to use 256. So 16 5s are 90, 16 6s are 96. So I'm just still going to take 5. The remainder, how much? 14. So 14, as you can see, is E. So this is E. So I will say this is 5E in hex. What about the number 164? So to write 164, you need to do 10 times 16 and then 4 times 1. Well, 10 times means A times. So this is A4 in hex. You can also do something similar to the double dabble method that we've discussed. So let's go back to this example of 94. So you start with 94. Now instead of dividing by 2 like we did for decimal, you always divide by 16. So when you divide by 16, you get 5 and you get a remainder of 14. And then again when you divide by 16, now you get 0 with a remainder of 5. So now when you put them in reverse order, you will get 5E. So same thing that we did for 2 in decimal, we are doing it for 16 in hexadecimal. So here is how you convert. These are two methods of converting from decimal to hexadecimal. There's a third way, probably quite easy since now you know decimal. So let's take these same examples. Let's take 85, 94, and no, we won't take 160 because it's too large. Okay, so 85 in decimal, first you convert it into binary. So decimal to binary. What is 85 in binary? 64, and that's 21 remaining. So I don't want 32. I will take 16. So then there's 5 left. I won't take 8. I will take 4. I won't take 2. I will take 1. Oh, that's a pretty looking number. Now what you want to do is you want to group these into 4s. So from the right hand side. So these are 4, and starting from here these are also 4 if you assume there's a 0 before it. And now what are these 4 numbers? This is 0, 1, 0, 1. 101 is 5. And what is 101? Well, 0101, then this is 5. So this is 55 in hex. What about 94? Once again, you do decimal to binary. 64, I won't take 32, I will take 16. 64 and 16 is 80. I need 14 more. So I will take 8. Now I need 6 more. So 4, 2, 1. Once again, let's group them up in 4s from the right hand side. So this is 4, this is 4. These 4 over here give you 5. These 4 bits over here, 1110. This is 14. But 14 you write as E. So this is 5E in hex. So if you write down any number and divide it into, what are they called? They're called nibbles. 4 bits is called nibble. So if you take them nibble by nibble from the right hand side, then each of them gives you 1 hex digit. So that's one way of converting from decimal to hexadecimal. Have you seen the use of hexadecimal anywhere? How about, for example, in color codes? So if you look at any kind of software like Photoshop or MS Paint or PowerPoint, where you might want to select a color for something, you might find a 6-digit color code. So there is an RGB. Each of these goes from 0 to 255. This is in decimal. But if you write this in hexadecimal, 0 is written as 00 and 255 is written as FF. So you might have seen a particular number being described as 105EB3. What this means is that the red component is 10 hex, the green component is 5E hex, and the blue component is B3 hex. How much is 10 in hex? 0, and this is 16. So this is 16 in decimal. 5E is your 94 in decimal. And how much is B3? B3. So 1 and 16. So 16 times B is 10, 11. Plus 1 times 3. 16 11 is 176, and this is 179. So 179 and 10. So for this particular color, red is 16, green is 94, blue is 179. So that's one place where you might have already seen the use of hexadecimal numbers. Another very important application is in what is called microprocessors. Why don't I discuss microprocessors separately? No, it's okay. I'll do it now. So what exactly is a microprocessor? So when you're doing any kind of programming, you do it in Python, C, C++, whatever. These are called high-level languages. So, for example, C, C++, Python, Java, what have you. And then you have to run this through a compiler. The compiler compiles it and converts your high-level language, whatever commands that you've written in your C, C++, Python. It converts them into what is called assembly language. And then this assembly language code has to be passed through an assembler, and this gets converted into what is called machine level code. So machine level code is actually entirely written in binary. So this is written in using zeros, ones. Assembly level language is often written in hex. So this is written in 0 to F digits. And this is at the level of the processor. So why is this important? Very often there are some, okay, so when you're using a high level language, so when you're writing, let's say, a Python program, first of all, you need to have your operating system working, you need to have your compiler software installed, and so on. So until you have all of these in place, there is no way you're going to be able to do Python programming. So of course, Python is very powerful, and it's very easy for us to read because we can understand what it means to have a for statement. We understand what it means to have some sort of exponentiation or a sine function or something. So we can do all of these complicated tasks in Python at a high level language. And the cost that we pay for that high level is all of these extra overheads, these extra computational overheads of having an operating system, having a compiler. If you don't want all of those overheads, if you want a very quick and fast program, you can go one step down and write an assembly language code, an assembly level program. And this assembly level program is done at the level of the processor. So we have what are called microprocessors, which are sometimes abbreviated as MUP, that you can actually program. So a microprocessor is basically a chip, and this you have to interface with some memory locations. What the microprocessor already has is certain information registers. An information register is like a memory location where you can store some amount of data, and of course you can overwrite it also. So you have some number stored over there, you use that number in doing some kind of operation, then you overwrite it with some extra information, that some more numerical data that you need, and so on. So these are and you can do arithmetic and logical operations on whatever is stored in these registers. So these are there in the microprocessor. In addition, you can also interface it with lots of external memory where you can store large amounts of data. There is also the arithmetic and logical unit, which actually does the task of these arithmetic and logical operations. So you can program this microprocessor to do various kinds of tasks. Typically, these tasks are not very complex. You can write a complex program, but it gets difficult the harder the program gets, because here you are, first of all, the instructions that you have are very rudimentary. You're just moving numbers around, you're doing some kind of addition, subtraction, or some kind of logical operations. But it gets harder to make more complex programs with this. You can also interface your microprocessor with some external devices, like for example, some kind of photodiode in case you're interested in a circuit that responds to light, or a sound detector, or something like that. So these are microprocessors, and if you want to program the microprocessor in assembly language, this programming is all done in hex. Similar to microprocessors, you can also have microcontrollers. And one example of a microcontroller is an Arduino. And this also, the difference is that if you have a microcontroller that already comes with some amount of inbuilt memory into it, that also can be interfaced with external devices, and you can make small home projects which might sense light, which might sense sound, temperature, and so on. There are lots of fun electronic projects that you can do with this kind of thing. We are also planning one interwoven activity in a couple of weeks, which will talk about using microcontrollers to do some electronic manipulation. Anyway, point is, if you want to program your microprocessor, you need to have a knowledge of the hexadecimal number system. Basically, any kind of command that you give and any kind of data that you want to store, these are both going to be in hex. So if you want to store the number 15 in the data, you will have to store it as 0f. And if you want to give the command move this data from the memory space to the register, then that command to move it will also have to be given as some hex code. So typically in a longer electronics course, we would also have one module on actual assembly language programming, but because of shortage of time, we can't do that over here. If you're interested, you can look up various texts. I can suggest some books to you, and you can take your microprocessor programming on from there. The last number system that I want to discuss over here is the octal number system. And this is, as the name might suggest, base 8. So this is again somewhat similar, conversion is somewhat similar to how it works for the hexadecimal system, except instead of grouping in sets of 4, you group them in 3s. So for example, suppose I have the number 53 in decimal. Let's first convert it to binary. This becomes not 64, I will take 32, then I will take 16, so it becomes 48. I want 5 more, so not 8, 4, 2, 1. So this should be 53 in binary. And now instead of grouping them in 4s, I'll group them in 3s. So take 3 from here and 3 from here. What is this 3? 110 is 6, and this is 5. So this is 5. So 6, 5 in base 8. Or sometimes this is called O for octal. Or you can do it the usual way. 53, you write it in terms of powers of 1, 8, 64, and so on. So 53 is 5 times 8 is 40, 6 times 8 is 48, and 48 and 5 is left over, so that's 5 units. So this is 65. Or you use the double dabble method. So you take 53, divide by 8, So you end up with 6 and the remainder is 5. Now you divide again by 8, you get 0 and remainder is 6. So going upwards, this is 65 in octal. And the other way around also in a similar fashion. If I give you the number 70, well not 70, 7 in octal, then this is what you're saying is this is, let's say 76. So what this means is this is 7 times 8 plus 6 times 1. So this is 56 and 6, which is 62. So 62 in decimal is written as 76 in octal. Of course, because we are working in base 8, the relevant digits over here are from 0 to 7. So this is your octal system.